"Well, Gordon," said Sir Topham Hatt, "I knew you wanted a panoramic view, but this is not the way to achieve it." "Yes, sir. Sorry, sir."
A better view for Gordon was I-fucking-conic. It may not be the most popular classic episode, but nonetheless, I really enjoyed the episode as a kid. There's also a lot that I find funny now, like rewatching as an adult. Like how Sir Topham Hatt wants to ride in Gordon's cab the first time going to the station, and then this happens, and then he has a coach. He was taking no fucking chances the second time, and I cannot blame him. This man came out looking like he got jumped or something. And while this episode is iconic for not only that, but the crash alone and just the situations that take place in it, some people may not know that this episode is actually loosely based off of real-life events. Well, more one very hard-to-pronounce event, that being the Montparnasse derailment. Yeah, you see it now, don't you? If you're anything like me, you've seen this photograph plenty of times and had no idea that it had anything to do with this episode and probably feel really stupid right now. Well, actually, probably not. It was you guys who told me that this was a real event, and now I'm the one who feels stupid. I'm the stupid one. It is you who holds the infinite wisdom. And thanks to him, with the help of your all's infinite wisdom, that's what we're gonna get into today. The Montparnasse derailment would occur on October 22nd, 1895. The Granville-Paris Express would overrun a buffer stop in the terminus. With the train several minutes late and the driver trying to make up for lost time, it would approach the station too fast, and there would be a failure with the train's air brake. After failing to stop, the train would run through the buffer stop, cross the station concourse, and end up crashing through a station wall. The locomotive would fall onto the streets below, where it would stand on its nose. As serious as the scene looks, there would only be one fatality, that of a woman in the street below who would be killed by falling masonry. The woman, Mary Augustina Goulard, had been standing in for her husband, a newspaper vendor, while he went to collect the evening newspapers. The consist itself consisted of steam locomotive number 721, hauling 3 luggage vans, a post van, and 6 passenger coaches. 2 passengers, the fireman, 2 guards, and a passerby in the street would also sustain injuries. Though still horrible and completely avoidable, it's lucky that only one life was lost. The driver of the large locomotive, a Type 240 French notation 120, would be heftily fined and sentenced to 2 months in prison. One of the train's guards would also be fined, as he was preoccupied with paperwork and would overall fail to apply the handbrake. The railway company would settle with the family of the deceased woman, and arrange for the education of her 2 young children, as well as proposing a future of employment for them. The passenger carriages were undamaged and easy to remove. However, it would take 48 hours before the legal process and investigation would allow the railway to start removing the locomotive and tender. Overall meaning that for 2 days, this was what you could see if you went to the train station. An attempt was made to move the locomotive with 14 horses, but this overall would fail. A 250-ton winch with 10 men would first lower the locomotive to the ground. From there, the tender would be lifted back into the station. Despite how severe the scene may have looked, when the locomotive reached the railway workshops, it was found to have suffered very little damage. Not only serving as inspiration for this classic Thomas episode, a near-identical train crash in the same location appears in the film adaptation of Hugo. And as I've said before, most people have seen this picture. I literally have a poster of this picture in my train room, like above my table, and I haven't known. Imagine my surprise. And looking at these photographs, it makes sense as to why Thomas and Friends would be inspired to make an episode like that. The accident itself is iconic, and the episode that it was inspired by was too. The true story behind the accident itself is incredibly sad. To know that a mother lost her life just because of one driver's actions, that's just a reality that shouldn't have ever been. Not only was all of this damage avoidable, but overall kind of stupid. The images taken of this event will always be funny, but when you find out the real, happenings of it all, it's kind of sad. However, I am happy to see that the railway actually did what they could to reimburse the family, and that in some ways it didn't all end up, fucked, and that at least somewhere in the story there is a silver lining. This ended up being one of those situations that in a way is bittersweet, but it still worked out. While the original story behind the original accident is of course sad, and normally it is, I appreciate this episode even more for the inspiration that it drew from it. For more reasons than one, this episode is truly a classic, and now I know a little bit more about the crash and I can appreciate even more about it. They kinda did right doing Gordon wrong, just saying. It, like most episodes featuring crashes with Gordon, took this untouchable-like character and brought him kinda, down to earth, but took a very heavy situation and was able to bring it, kinda down for children viewing, while also respecting the actual event. Like, they did good, come on now. And this, are you kidding? Mwah, mwah, mwah. Beautiful art. Whether it was the toys inspired by the episode or the episode itself, there was a lot for us as kids to fall in love with here. In almost every way, this episode has cemented itself as a classic Thomas and Friends episode, and it will forever remain that. Now we just have a little bit more to appreciate as adults whenever we see it. And with all that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed taking a look at the real story behind A Better View for Gordon.